We are now live on the air. It is Monday, November 14th, and this is the meeting of the Node.js LTS Working Group. In attendance today is myself, Miles Borns, Rod Vag, Michael Dawson, and Jeremiah. Jeremiah, how do you pronounce your last name?
Sankpeel?
Sankpeel. Excellent. So we have a pretty short agenda today. There's kind of really only three things to discuss. We're going to get started with the second agenda item, an NPM update for v0.10 and v0.12. I think it's safe before we even get started to say that the 0.10 update is likely off the table. This was an issue opened originally by Rod, and is pointing at a update to the NPM license that came in an NPM 2 that landed on v4, and the thought that it may be appropriate to update the versions 0.10 and 0.12 in order to ship with the appropriate license. Rod, do you have anything to add to that?
The urgency is a little bit less now that 0.10's gone, but it is something we really should get cleaned up for 0.12. Yeah.
So is there anything else that we have on 0.12 staging that we should be looking at including as well?
No, I don't believe so. That's the thing here, is that I don't know about doing a release with just that. I would have done it for 0.10, but didn't get any other positive responses about that. But let me just double check. Oh, there's some test stuff, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at it myself too. Looks like we've got TLS fixed minor JS lint failure, reintroduce Aries to versions, add working lint CI make target, and mark dgram multicast multiprocess as flaky. So what I was going to throw out there is something that we could do. There was the CARES update that needed to happen as well.
I'm pretty sure that already went out, didn't it?
Did that go out in 12?
I thought we did, yeah.
I didn't think we updated that in 12.
Yes, we did. In 0.12.18 in October the 19th. We did a pretty much a special release for that.
Oh, okay, that's why. Staging hasn't been rebased against that. That's why.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that. I thought I did all that. Yeah, okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 things on staging. Yeah, we could do a release with this. My question here is, though, that do we want to jump ahead to the latest NPM version 2, or just fix that license?
I see no problem in just updating NPM altogether. I mean, the changes that they've been doing to their, let's see, right now we're shipping 15.11. I can audit the changelogs just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that most of the changes that came in between, 1 and 11 were pretty not a problem. Although if we want to just like stick with what's on there, we could just port the license.
I'm okay with jumping ahead if it's not hard for us to do ourselves. Is there any reason we wouldn't do it ourselves?
By jumping ahead, do you mean just updating to the latest 2.x?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I've done one of the, like, I don't know if it actually got merged, but I've done like one of the setups for an NPM release. Sorry, an NPM in update, whatever you want to call it, and it's not really that difficult to do. So I would say just do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that we should be able to just cherry pick the commit.
There's instructions on their wiki how to do it. You basically just have npm like run itself to make a release and just copy the files over. Everything's already instructed there. Like if you want, I'll even make a pull request for it if I have time. I could probably fit up time to do that if that's really easier for everyone.
Just to clarify, I'm not seeing a 0.12.18 anywhere. I see a 16 and 17 maintenance release, but I don't see a 0.12.18 on staging on the release branch or in our releases on the tagged releases on GitHub.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, sorry. That was working on. I read it wrong. I read the change log, the commit log wrong. Working on
Okay.
0.12.18. Is 0,
Okay, I see
0.12.17.
now. 0.12.17 was the CRE's fix. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
My bad.
That's my bad.
Our bad. I'll own it with you. Okay, excellent. So I guess, Jeremiah, do you want to work on backporting the npm v2 update from 4 to 12? I can take care of that too if you'd like.
From backport, I wasn't talking about backporting. I was talking about like doing a thing for it. If it's gonna be, I mean, that might be easier. Otherwise, you might need to get like delta commits in between, right? It might be easier just to like redo it for 0.12 is what I was talking about.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Instead of just backporting all of them. Yeah. If you're comfortable doing that, that would make sense.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Okay, excellent. So then I guess we can just say we will do the npm update, and then when would we want to do the release? It's November 14th right now. Could do it
late November.
Yep. I'm thinking about trying to get a
maybe it might be a little bit awkward if it overlaps with Node.js Interactive, but first week of December.
Yeah, I'm December 6th is a good day. I think we're trying to target some other LTS releases for then as well.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, excellent.
Can somebody can somebody open an issue in the LTS repo for that? Just a timeline for 0.12, like we have been having for the version 4.
Yep. I'll make a note of that, and I'll open that after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so got that. So the next issue is 153 that was opened by Jeremiah, status and plan for V6 LTS. So I think there were a couple different questions in there as far as like what we were planning and working on. Jeremiah, do you want to bring up what your main concerns were that you wanted to bring up in that issue?
Oh, I just don't think it's like very well communicated as to what we were actually doing. So we should like kind of specify what we're doing and maybe like lay out what we think when we think we're going to do the first releases, so that we already have those kind of like penciled in and we can go ahead and do those.
Okay. Would everyone on this call feel comfortable with just calling? So the last LTS release was, I think it would have been like the 19th, so it was almost a month ago. But we probably do want to do an RC process. So I see kind of two different options we could do right now. I'm aiming to have a V4 Semver minor release on the 6th or the 13th, depending on when we can get certain stuff in, because I want to have a 1-month RC process on that. So that could have us with 3 potential dates for the next V6. That would be the 29th, the 6th, or the 13th. Does anyone have a preference?
A 1-month RC process? That seems a little bit long to me.
That's for V4 because it's going to be a Semver minor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks RC.
What's in the Semver minor that's a big deal?
If you give me a second, I can load that
1 month
up.
still does seem like a long time.
That's just what we've done for the other Semver minors for V4 in the past.
Oh, okay.
We don't need to stick to 1 month. That was just,
I think that was probably driven by like an initial like extra cautionary because like we did like our first minor release in an LTS branch and we weren't really sure how it would go down.
That was also when we were dealing with the libuv update, which was a lot more.
Oh, right, that was very scary. Yeah.
Yeah. So the minors in here are going to be introduce secure context to TLS Connect, 451 status code, make the listener address configurable in the debugger, export more OpenSSL symbols, and that's it.
Yeah, none of those are particularly worrying.
Nope. So we could just stick with a 2-week RC on both of them.
I'd be cool with that.
So if we're going to do a 2-week RC, would you all be comfortable with putting out an RC on the 22nd and doing the release on the 6th?
That's the week after Node Interactive?
Exactly, yeah. And we could do a release of 12, 4, and 6 on that date.
December the 6th, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be fine.
Are you doing other releases? Or are you doing the 4-point minor release that day too?
Yeah, I would handle the V4 and the V6 release.
Okay, well that was my other question that came with this issue was who.
Yeah.
So like I'm fine with Miles if you're keen to take point on these things, that's fine. But I still do want to see other people get involved in this process.
Yep.
So do we have any other active interest? I know Evan put up his hand, but has that
was we also wanted to talk about that today.
So Gibson Fanstock from IBM has expressed interest. He's going to audit he's going to audit my audit. He's going to meta audit me while I do some backporting. He's expressed interest in getting involved in helping out with this stuff. So that would be great. I think more hands on deck would be awesome. The only thing I did notice, which I wanted to bring up, and again, I think that this process should be distributed anyways, but more just so we're aware. Originally, I was under the impression that we would probably have about twice as much work with twice as many release lines because of how much work 10 and 12 created, but it just doesn't turn out to be the case. It turns out that a lot of the commits that can land on 6 can land on 4. There aren't like many things that land on one or the other, and the ones that are pretty obvious, and you find out pretty quickly. So a lot of the auditing can be done in parallel.
Oh, that's nice. That's great.
Yeah, so that is good.
So there isn't really that much more work. So far, the only real thing that I've run into that's annoying is running both of the test suites at the same time if you end up having random ports conflicting, which can happen. But I mean, like, again, here we're talking about the difference of like 20 or 30 seconds. We're not talking about, like hours and hours of extra labor. But I went through on Friday and went through the backlog of commits for V6. And as I'm going through that backlog for V6, it is also the backlog for V4. And I just did it all in parallel. And it probably took at most an extra 15% of time. It was not grueling by any means. So yeah, I mean, the work should be distributed in the sense that we shouldn't just have one person doing it. But yeah, that was
so what can we have other than that process of doing the backporting? Where can we involve other people? Because I'd like to jump in. Love Jeremiah to be able to jump in as well. Is it just reviewing the lists on GitHub, or do you want us to do some, branch diffing and looking for ourselves, or what's the best way that we can also be involved to have more heads in the process?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the hard work is the branch diffing. The hard work is like, so for example, when I sat down, so like when I did the last V4 release, I had audited everything. And when we did the last V6 release, that had audited everything. So, we're talking, like, 2-3 weeks ago, like a month ago ish, just a little bit less than a month ago. In that month, we've had about 200 some odd commits that had not been labeled. And so, the hard work is literally just going through all those commits, figuring out whether or not they should be backported, labeling them appropriately, and then attempting to backport, and then, helping with people with the backports as they need to go through and auditing and signing off on those. The work could be distributed in the sense of different people taking time to do the backlog. It could also be distributed more directly by us just being more vigilant about labeling stuff when it's going on.
Is there a role for the bot here that we could insert where maybe it could do some auditing for us and then post comments on issues that don't have the appropriate labels and ask the authors to label them, maybe?
I mean, that's what my proposed script pretty much does, except it just does the labeling.
Right, yours doesn't attempt to backport. Yeah, okay.
I guess what you're saying is put like an annoying label.
Something can land doesn't mean it should land.
Well, even if it added a comment saying we've noticed this doesn't have, this is closed but does not have a don't land or a land. Which do you think it should be to the author? Might get more people to do it.
We could just have a generic like backport audit label that goes on everything. And that would just remind people that they have to do it.
And that would when we do that, then if you had a label, then you could actually have a GitHub search that anyone can use. They don't have to use any tooling to find them. So anyone that wants to contribute could just use the GitHub search to do that. That might be a good way to involve the bot in an easy way at the beginning.
Yeah, I think if we just added like a gray label like backport audit or like something a little bit more descriptive, I think truthfully, I don't think that people don't want to do it. They just don't think about it. There's a lot of moving parts. So if we do something that's right in their face and it's a label, I think that's a really good idea.
Well, and how are they going to know though that there's some? So this is like the PR is closed. We would then add this label, or
I would say that the label gets added when they open the PR, and every PR should get it right away.
I'm just wondering how that reminds. So we go ahead. There's a PR. It lands. It's at the point where it lands. You want a reminder that says, "Now, okay, tell me whether it should be land on 4 or not land on 4 or land on 6." Or do you think people should know that right up front?
So the LTS watch labels are at the very least to just say we should try to backport it, right?
Right.
When I go to do the backport and when anyone does the backport, it's like it becomes, for the most part, pretty obvious right away whether or not something should land. Some of the doc stuff takes a little bit more finesse. But like, I mean, if something lands on the branch, I think we're pretty safe that 90% of the time it should land there, as long as it's not assembler minor.
So it's not that we need more input from the author. We just need somebody to make the final call.
Well, the author can be involved in saying, well, I don't think this needs to go there. But yeah, we just need somebody to be able to look at these things. And so on that point of whether it can land or not, Jeremiah, have you had any further traction on your pull request for the bot to do the testing for automatic landing?
Not really. I know that like Philip's trying to get so that actually requires like the bot where it's hosted to have a clone of the node repo. So there's like a build working group step that needs to be done before that can like be live anyway. So like that's sort of in progress. And then
Miles,
I could like maybe do more testing on it, but like I don't know, it's awkward to try and test it manually, to try and make automated tests because it needs to spawn so many child processes to like set up all the Git stuff and then try to do it. like is kind of awkward. So I think like probably testing it live is kind of like the best option. It's only going to affect new stuff anyway. And like honestly, if we're thinking of doing bot things, like I'd like to try that first before we come up with, well, not before we come up with other ideas, but before we try other ideas too, if that makes sense. I think we should start with that and then add on where we need from it.
Okay. Do you need some movement on the build side for this now? Is that
yeah? And I mean, general review of it would be kind of nice too.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean, part of the problem here too, and then this gets into something where we could change the process, and maybe Rod, you and I could discuss maybe a tool we could build on branch diff that could solve this. Is that like I've been so far not landing things on staging until they're like clear to go. So unless it's lived for 2 weeks without a problem, we haven't been landing it. And on anything that's like questionable, that we're kind of like, maybe we should wait and see. Like for example, Jeremiah, today there were issues with that with the set timeout stuff.
Yep.
So like that was one that like we held off, like I held off on doing because I kind of had that feeling in my stomach like there might be stuff. And then, you know, like a couple months later, we found these regressions. So I've kept labels on them, but not staged them. But I think that is probably one of the blocking parts of the process is that, you know, if with me being like the gatekeeper of things landing on staging, or with like very specifically like UROD or like very like specific things are landed, that makes it really easy to know that we're not accidentally putting things in. Like when we have a 200 commit backlog on staging, I don't have to go through and re-audit every single one of those when we're doing a release, which saves a lot of time. But if we move it to the point where we're just going to put everything on staging, then maybe we could do something that could like check to make sure that each commit's been in a release. Give me a list of commits that have been in releases for so long. Check the commits like don't have a label, like a hold label or a watch, like if we want to like wait for things but still put it on staging. And that may be preferable in the sense that like it will like lower the bar there. But one thing that we've also not had a problem with, which has been really good, is that the process we have right now ends up offloading all the conflicts into pull requests, and we've never really had conflicts on the staging branch. Whereas if we start landing things right away, but then we just cherry pick specific things, especially around Semver minor commits, then we're going to need like a meta staging branch, because we're going to start actually having conflicts in the staging branch when we try to just cherry pick specific things.
I think if we get to that point, we've done something wrong.
But I guess that's what I'm getting at, is that if we just start staging everything right away and we don't just leave issues with labels, then that will happen. Like I've seen it happen with pull requests that are sitting there that have conflicts simply due to the fact that we've moved forward and touched stuff while we're waiting for those to land. So I'm at a bit of a loss as to, other than just auditing and landing the obvious things, how to speed this process up.
Another branch, another staging.
Next thing you know, it'll just be all staging branches all the way down. I think that's like, I don't know. I think what you're describing is like kind of like a limitation of Git too, and just we need to kind of like work around that in the best way we can. Like there's just going to be conflicts a bit at some point, and it's kind of just how it is. So we can minimize that, but unless I'm missing something.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, to Rod, to your original question, what I think we could do that could be helpful today is, I was planning on spending some time just like screen sharing while I'm doing these backports and just showing my process and the way in which I do it and the reason I make decisions. And, like I fully trust yourself and Jeremiah to just pick up and do the same work. And so if either of you want to do it, I think it's just as simple as just saying, hey, I'm doing this right now. And that person is the person who's working at the current time.
Okay, cool. So we've got Torsten on our end working. He's moving to more open source work in Node Source, and I wouldn't mind tuning him into the process. He's been pretty detached from LTS stuff, but if you're doing screen sharing on some of this stuff, then I'd love to give him the opportunity to look at that, to just start thinking about it.
Okay, so maybe what we should do, there's about 175 commits that need to get backported this week. Why don't we pick a day this week, and I can just make myself available to kind of like do like a Hangout screen share with people who want to watch, and they can just ask questions as I'm going through the process about why I'm making certain decisions.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so why don't I'll send out a. Do you want to send me? You said it was Torsten?
Torsten, yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you ping me on IRC with his email address, and Jeremiah, if you can just send me yours just to speed it up. And I've got Gibson's handy. I'll put together a little doc so we can find a time that works for everyone one day this week, and if I have till next Tuesday to get the RCs out, we can be flexible this week about when I go and do some of the backporting.
Sounds good to me.
Going to warn you in advance. It is not exciting work.
I mean, I'm probably gonna do something else in the meantime, and then just kind of follow along.
Totally. Okay, so release date for V4, V6, V012. I feel like we've got that figured out. We're going to aim to do a release of all three on November 6th.
December 6th?
Yeah, December 6th. Thank you. With an RC coming out for them on Tuesday the 22nd.
So the version 4 will be a Semver minor?
Version 4 will be a Semver minor.
And do we have any reason to believe the version 6 will be a Semver minor?
There is no plan for version 6 to be a Semver minor, based on the way in which we've... Pardon?
Yeah, that's cool. So let's lock that in as Semver patch, regardless.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Just the way we've done version 4 was the way I was thinking we would do version 6. Now that it's LTS, nothing Semver minor can land without a vote from the working group.
Yep, that's great. And even if it does land, let's hold it off so that we just give people a Semver minor, so we don't set that
the first one.
Yeah, totally. There's enough of a backlog of Semver patch stuff, so I'm not concerned about that.
Is there also, like, should we be setting not just the next one, but I think we said something like monthly, but is that good enough, or should we set like dates going forward? I don't know.
Well, let's jump forward 1 month from there and do it in January. January the what would that be? Tuesday. We could do January the 10th, maybe. So, or the 3rd or the 10th.
Because that would then require the RC 2 weeks before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If we just keep up a monthly schedule, that would put January 10th, and then maybe February 7th.
Yep, that's awesome.
So you know what? Maybe I'll just make a pull request to the LTS repo with a calendar of all of the releases between now and the next Semver major.
Yes, that'd be great.
Yep.
Cool. And then I think then the only thing that we would need to really do on that would be just revisit it if we needed to do a minor. But if we're doing a month between every release, unless we're doing something really breaking, we should be fine. But we should include a note that the dates are subject to change based on longer RC process if necessary.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So I think that's everything that I wanted to get to today and we had on the agenda. Is there anything else that people wanted to bring up or questions that individuals had?
Nope, this is all really good. Oh, there is. I'll just comment again. I have my README rewrite pull request. I'd really like to get that in. The bit that I was stalled on was there was an agreement to expand out what ABI meant, and I didn't do that. But if I get that done, I have to then roll it forward to all the changes that have happened in between to catch up. But I just a word of warning. I'd really like some eyes on that to try and get that landed.
That's the README with the platform support.
It's README with a lot of changes. It's like it's got the replacement graphic with the animated thing, and it expands out all of the text and cleans it all up. So it's not just little tiny bits; it's the whole lot.
Okay, but it does include that.
I don't think it did, but I think it should do. So
okay, it's just that was one thing I noticed. There was one pull request for that, and it would be nice to get that landed. I think too.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So mine is pull request number 121. I'll ping you there, but just a word of warning here that I'd really like to pull people in to help me get that landed. But it's not ready yet, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was, but now it needs those reviews taken care of.
Sure.
Okay, excellent. So as a follow-up to like what we've been talking about on here, I will open an issue about the next series of LTS releases, just stating the date for December 6th. And then we'll put together a pull request with an updated schedule between now and April, at which time we're doing the next Denver Major, with the next following releases that will come out. And then Jeremiah, if you could take point on getting that 0.12 release out. So one thing that's worth mentioning, I may put out the RC earlier than next Tuesday because I'm actually flying to Singapore on Sunday, and I'll be on an airplane from Sunday until Tuesday. So I don't know where I'm going to be or what's going to be going on, other than the fact that I'm going to be a total mess. So I may try to just get that in before I do the flight to make sure that it's in and we can get the timeline done. But I won't do the RC until Tuesday.
Okay. I mean, I don't really know much about doing V12 releases, but I guess if it's just going to be one thing,
I'll do the
really
V12. I've handled the V12 stuff, so as long as the staging branch is ready, I can do the V12.
Well, I'll get the pull request for that at least to update NPM.
Awesome. And that could potentially be our last 0.12 if there's nothing security for the rest of December.
Okay, excellent. And then I'll also get out, Rod, if you, oh, you already did, yeah. I'll send out an email to people with dates and times to suggest for auditing the auditor.
All right.
Great. And if they're afternoon, that's more convenient for me. But like I'm not absolutely essential to need to be there, but I wouldn't mind if I can. That's all.
At which time was that work better for you, Rod?
Afternoons, your afternoons. Because it's my mornings, of course.
Yeah. Cool. Unfortunately, I think for Gibson, that's going to be his middle of the night. But
where's Gibson?
He's in the UK.
Oh, okay. I mean, okay. Make it optimal for him rather than me, and I'll just make sure Torsten can make it as well.
Yeah, I can also break it up into 2 days at 2 different times. Right? Like, there's more than enough stuff.
Okay.
So maybe I'll just do that. Maybe I'll pick 2 times and then people have an option.
Sure.
Do that.
Okay,
other quick question, thinking now that 10's out, have we had any other feedback from people on, like, I know there's some people concerned about it going out of service. Have we heard much since then?
No.
There was a small amount of vocal people when it first went out, but it died out pretty quickly and slowly turned into buffer concerns about V7.
Okay.
Yeah, look, I think we're always going to have that conservative part of our user base. that are important to look after, but they seem to have a lot of trouble understanding the breadth of the concerns and user types that we have to deal with. So even the buffer stuff, that might be annoying for some, but there are actually good reasons why we are having to compromise and do that for other concerns. So if every one of our decisions is they're not just, oh, we want to move forward and break stuff. It's we have this really diverse user base and we have to balance them all. And all of our decisions are going to get criticism from some sector.
Yeah.
We just have to make sure we minimize that concern and make it as smooth as possible for the maximum number of people.
Yeah. No, I was just curious on
yeah.
10 because I hadn't heard anything for a while, and I was hoping that was good news. So.
Yeah. I think like in reality, the one thing that I've seen that we can do that just minimizes this is just limiting the surprise. People don't like being surprised. And so
Yeah.
like 0.10 wasn't a huge surprise. And I think that's why we didn't see as much, the buffer stuff on 7, I think was a bit of a surprise for people. And so we just gotta work with it. But I think as long as we have a policy, and this is what we started working on in that thread, and I think people will learn this over time, that as we do majors, we can't know everything when we do them, and we're willing to revert when it's necessary, and people recognize that. I think with each major, it will become less and less painful.
Yeah, and I think one of the other big issues we face here is that the delta between 10 and 12 and what we did in version 4 was actually really large. So there was a lot of trauma involved in that, and people are still smarting from that. But when you start to look at what's going on in our progression from, say, 4 to 6 and then from 6 to 8, it feels a lot more incremental, and people, I think, will end up being a lot more comfortable once we have left the baggage of 10 and 12 and the IOJS stuff behind. So I expect the ecosystem to start to be more broadly accepting of what we're doing after we move past this.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, there's always going to be people that have this perception that we are just breaking stuff because it's cool to break stuff. We're never going to be able to get rid of that, and we just need to make sure we are doing the right thing that we think is the right thing for our users. As long as we stick to that, then I think we'll be fine.
Agreed.
Okay, good meeting everyone.
Okay. Talk to you guys
Thank
later.
you everyone for finding the time. Have a
Thanks.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.